morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. Now, if you're a viewer or a listener to the Nonprofit Show, Fridays are one of the best days of the week for many reasons. Jarrett Ransom, my co host, coined it, she calls it Friday here because we get excited about our Ask and Answered episodes with our friends from Fundraising Academy. It's a lot of fun. It's a different time and energy for us because folks from all over the world write, call in, ask questions, and then we discuss those with somebody from Fundraising Academy. For example, LaShonda, I was at an event yesterday, a small luncheon with the mayor of the city of Phoenix because we have the Super Bowl coming, and it was kind of an update on where things are going. And somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, can you ask this question on an upcoming episode of the Nonprofit Show?" So, it's these questions come to us from all forms and fashions. Today, lashonda-Williams is going to be joining us. She's one of the intrepid minds at Fundraising Academy. So, welcome, my friend.
Thank you so much, Julia, for having me. I'm very excited to join you again today and hear what the constituency have questions about.
Well, thanks. It's never a dull moment here. We get a lot of different questions, and our questions come to us, like I said, day in, day out from all different ways. And we want to thank our sponsors that help us have this discussion that's so robust every Friday. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Fundraising Academy at National University, Staffing Boutique, and the Nonprofit Thought Leader. National University Fundraising Academy has really taken over and owned this day. And so every Friday, we get the voice and the wisdom of somebody different from their organization. And that is really fun for us. So we want to make sure if you want to find any of our other episodes, you know that you can get to us on Roku, YouTube, Amazon Fire TV, and Vimeo. If you want to listen to us via podcast while you're mowing the lawn or doing laundry or commuting to work, cue us up wherever you like to get your podcast content. LaShonda, we just got notified by our producer, Kevin Pace, that the podcast itself just surpassed 10,000 downloads, which for us is exciting because while we've been doing this for 3 years, the Nonprofit Show, we're just going to be starting our fourth year shortly. We've only been doing the podcast technology for 1 year, less than one.
That is amazing, and applauds to you all and everything that you do. The content is amazing and reflective of what's happening in the nonprofit sector. So way to go.
Well, thank you. I know it's not just my mom and our producer, Kevin Pace.
Right.
Downloading.
It's not just your immediate family, but it's your extended family in the nonprofit community, and that is a tremendous milestone to be celebrated.
Thank you. I like thinking about that, the extended family. Okay, well, are you ready? Because Althea from Wilmington, Delaware has a big question.
Okay, let's go for it.
It's a big question, and it's a very interesting question. Althea writes, a donor from overseas, outside the U.S., has made a big donation, but we really don't know much about him. Is there any reason not to spend the money now, or should we wait till we find out more? We need it for operations now. Isn't this an interesting question?
This is a very, very interesting question. As of late, the past several years, I want to say the past 2 years post-COVID, we've received in the nonprofit sector a surge of tremendous transformational gifts from a variety of donors. Some of them have been familiar with the organization, or their team has taken on the responsibility of researching organizations that fit the linkage and the interest of the said donor. Now, when it comes to large gifts, transformational gifts, or any gift, the first thing that comes to my mind is thinking about from the cost selling cycle, the pre-discovery phase, which is where you would normally investigate and find out more about your prospective donor. It seems as though, based on the information shared, that this gift was one of those one-off outlier gifts. Yeah. Meaning the individual may not have had any relationship with the organization prior to the gift. And in that particular instance, I also think about gift acceptance policies. Yes. and knowing more about the donors. And so it's very important to obviously be very grateful and demonstrate the gratitude for the gift, but you must know more about your donors. And the reason why you want to know about your donors from an ethical standpoint, you want to ensure that those said funds that have been given by the said donor are in adherence to your gift acceptance policies, and there are not any potential ethical challenges that would bring a bad look to your organization. And then you also want to make sure that you know as much about your significant transformational donors so that you can further deepen the relationship. Because imagine the initial gift being sizable, and with adequate cultivation and learning more about that donor, the opportunities are absolutely infinite for growing and making sure that you retain that donor long term, because transformational gifts are phenomenal. But what's most important is maintaining a long term, substantial relationship for the sustainability and life of the organization. So definitely invest in identifying more information about your donor now. And I promise you, your donor will appreciate that later in the long term.
I love what you said, and it was so articulate because it like drew the arc of, starting with that gift policy, which is super important. And I don't know about you, Lashonda, but I fear that a lot of nonprofits in this country don't have those. They don't have them until something like this happens, and then they're like, "Holy cow!" Not to pick on the tobacco industry, but the tobacco industry just wants to make a big gift, and
Right.
you're like, you love the money, but you don't love the cancer, right? I mean,
Exactly. It's, yeah.
so it's hard. I mean, it's like we work so hard. We want the money because we want to put it, to good use and employ it in the way that we know will help us reach our mission, vision, and goals and the values that we stick to. But you're right. I think you got to kind of like pump the brakes
Exactly.
and
Because you want to do your research. That is most important, because your organization is viable, and apparently the donor obviously sees the value in the organization, but we want to make sure that it's in adherence to maintaining highest ethical standards as far as the organization's brand. Because the last thing you want is to have accepted a transformational gift and then to later find out that there are some ethical implications behind how the individual, has garnered their wealth or the source of that revenue. So it's really important to do as much as you can on the front end immediately after receiving the gift. And even prior to this announcement about the gift, because I'm certain at some point there will be an announcement about the gift. And so you want to minimize any potential conflicts and ethical challenges along the way. So definitely do the research now.
My first thought is that all of these things should be in place, and then you pick up the phone and you immediately call that organization, if it's a foundation or a person, or
Mm-hmm.
get to whomever it is you can get to start that dialogue as well, to find out, what's their
Immediately.
motivation and what's their story, and do they want, like, how do they want to be recognized, what are the
Exactly.
strings attached, because a lot of times these things are done, anonymously, and then you have parameters to disclosing what has occurred.
Exactly. And, even with anonymous gifts, there is still a level of information that your organization must maintain. And when you're thinking about anonymous gifts, it's from a standpoint of public recognition. However, your organization should be very familiar with all of its donors and having basic information about the donor's profile. What is their linkage to your organization? What are specific areas of their interest? And then what are their abilities as it moves forward? And most importantly, as you're talking about recognition, in the instance where individuals may not want public recognition, but you also still want to steward them by sharing with them how their gift has been impactful with your organization. So yes, the more you know, the more we grow, and then the more your organization can continue to garner additional support.
I love that. The more we know, the more we grow. You're awesome. You're a smart cookie, sister. I love being on with you on Fridays. It's super cool. Okay, well, Althea, we gave you so much information. Two things. I'm dying to know how much this gift is, and I'm dying.
Me too.
I'm
I'm
like,
on edge. And
I know. And you need to reach back to us and let us know what you did and how it worked. Because, LaShonda, I think it's one thing with the two of us chatting about this, but I bet if you took this to your development team or your C-suite or your board, no matter the size, you're going to have a whole host of different opinions. You
absolutely.
And that's stressful in itself trying to navigate internally what you have to do. So yeah, really interesting. I love this question. Okay, well, let's go to our next question, and that comes to us from Sammy in Corona, California. We hired a manager of marketing and communications. She wants to rebrand our logo and lots of other things that we've worked hard on. A lot of volunteers helped put these things together. We don't want to kick their work to the side of the road just because we hired a pro who has new ideas. We've had this question or questions like this before. It's a big, big deal. And I think it comes because a lot of PR agencies will do pro bono work, right? And so if they're going to engage and do pro bono work, they don't want to show up and say, "Oh yeah, everything's great," right? Because
Right.
it's not in their best interest. They want to shake things up, do something that they think is better. It's such an interesting and stressful thing for an organization to go through.
It really is, and when I'm thinking about this, Sammy, it's a situation where you obviously want to be very mindful how you manage the delicate situation, but it all begins with thinking about your organization, the mission, the purpose, the brand, and the reason why you exist. So thinking about those foundational things will help guide your decision making. And the first thing that comes to mind is the importance of volunteers in all facets of an organization. Having buy-in internally and externally helps with your overall organization's brand. Now, we absolutely love our pros, but we also rely on volunteers for our day-to-day operations. And so in my mind, meeting in the middle would be one thing that we often do in the philanthropic space is holding a focus group. You can never go wrong, and including some of those very same volunteers in the focus group that your pro will facilitate so that he or she can get some background knowledge on where you are with the current brand and the mindset and the thought processes of those said volunteers that participated in that process. And then your pro can also guide the conversation to elevating the brand based on some of those foundational principles that those volunteers are able to provide for your organization. And then it demonstrates the value in the volunteer, and it also demonstrates the value of having the professional with guiding the conversation and framing it in such a way that it is inclusive of the majority of the thoughts.
I agree with you. I think that's a smart way to go. I also want to caution folks that I think there's a lot of times, and it's whether you're for profit or nonprofit, is that you develop internally fatigue. You're like, if I
Mm-hmm,
have to see that e-newsletter, I'm speaking here, if
mm-hmm.
I have to see that one more time looking that way, but you have to remember that our constituency is getting barraged with things. And it's perilous to start all over again with new messaging sometimes.
Exactly.
While we might be sitting in our cubicles thinking, oh, this is so boring, maybe that's not the case. Maybe we need to tweak other things and keep the branding more sacred, but
Exactly.
amplify some of these other things that we're doing, right?
Because our constituency, they follow us for a reason. They are obviously attached to what we've had in place, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to be better and to grow. But from an organizational structural standpoint, sometimes, like Julia mentioned, when you change branding, sometimes you will lose some of your supporters, so you want to really approach it with caution. And when preparing to kind of rebrand and restructure things in the organization, it's important to have a variety of voices participating in that process, comparable to a feasibility study when you're preparing for a capital campaign, so
Yeah.
that you can have the buy-in, you can have the input, and you're making decisions that are prudent and they're based on your constituency, considering all of the variables and factors.
Yeah, it's a big, big topic. and
Yes.
it can get very emotional, very messy, and very expensive because of all the
Yes.
things you have to change. I know that, National University and Fundraising Academy, you all are in a
Yes.
period of changing your branding. I mean, we will probably see some branding changes over the next year, and that is, I'm sure, I'm not sure, I am positive it's an incredibly heavy lift for the overall organization. And so, yeah, make sure you're thoughtful on this before you jump into that. Okay, it's a really interesting day because we go from marketing to magicians. Okay, I've never said that on the
Okay.
Profit Show.
Magician. Say it again 3 times.
I know, super crazy. Rowan from Provo, Utah writes, we're planning an event with a nationally known magician this spring. We want to put it on our social media, but the magician is saying we have to get his permission. Really? Don't nonprofits have different copyrights than private companies? We want this problem to disappear.
Wow, Rowan. I know you would love to make this magically disappear. However,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to pull a
No.
rabbit out of the hat on this one. So there's so many things that come to mind when I'm thinking about this. First and foremost, congratulations to your organization and securing a national musician to help with elevating your organization's endeavor.
Mhm.
But this makes me think about leadership management and thinking about the whole CFRE and under the leadership management domain. When you are seeking contractors, it is important, whether it be for any type of service or product, that you ensure that everything you need is included in that said contract. And it sounds like we got a little excited
Yeah.
about the fact that we secured the individual and we didn't think about what it was that we needed as far as deliverables. And with most contracts, you have all of your deliverables on there. And I've worked in instances with entertainment individuals and viewed some writers. And, with the writer, it provides all the specifications that they want, that they need, that are on their must have list. At the same time, when we're employing them, we need to have our must have list to be added to that said writer. And so with that, you would assume that it would be okay to promote the actual event and the fact that the individual will be present, but we cannot make assumptions. And this is the example of where we cannot make assumptions. What I will say at this point, because apparently the contract is, in place, is to go back and speak with the musician and talk to them about the importance of the organization, its mission, and how important their participation is in your particular endeavor and supporting it, and then ask if there is something specific that they already have prepared that you may share on your social media. And hopefully that musician will be amenable. If not, then you'll have to go back to the drawing board with that contract and
Oh,
say,
yeah.
what do we need to do to amend it?
I would say that it's probably the case that the magician and his marketing team or his entertainment management team wants I'm assuming it's a man, but it could be a woman, his or her
Mhm.
image and branding
Exactly.
maintained. So
Exactly.
it's probably more like these are the images you can use,
And only those.
and only those, and probably some of the nomenclature, like, Mike the Magician, known for the best, whatever.
Exactly.
And a lot of times
Disappearing
they
act.
yeah, a lot of times they have monikers, and they
Mhm.
want the person's name with that moniker always attached. So it could
Exactly.
be that simple. And also, I mean, the bigger a brand, the stronger it actually is for your organization to understand that because they're probably supporting it, right?
Right. Absolutely.
You know. Yeah, so you want to have that linkage. You want them pushing it out. You want that talent agency, management company, whatever. You want your nonprofit, and then you want media to be able to pick up on it. And so it's
Yeah.
probably not contentious as much as you think it is. It's probably just, to your point, LaShonda, understanding what the contract said.
Exactly. And again, with all professional entertainers, they do provide you with their deck, for lack of better terms. And so, sometimes we want to be a little more specific, as Julia mentioned, than they want to be because of their said brand. And that's where your branding teams will have to meet in the middle, we hope, and that you'll come up with something that can be amenable for both parties involved for the
Yeah.
betterment of the organization.
And it might be too that they just have like amazing um, items that make your marketing just super fabulous, right? They
Exactly.
might have tools and reach that you don't have. So,
Exactly. And
just
that's
think
why
about
it's so
social media.
important. That's why you really have to talk about these things in the beginning stages, because, what you mentioned is absolutely right. With it being a national entertainer, obviously they have followers. And so that's where you're looking at your contract and you're saying, we really need you to have X number of posts on your social media by this day and this time. So you really want to be very specific to maximize the opportunity to benefit your organization, because you don't want to lose a moment. And then, obviously they're covered with the
Yeah,
entertainer.
good job, Rowan. Again, we've given you a lot of new ways and different ways to think about this. I don't think it's a problem as much as I think it's an opportunity. You just got to kind of
Exactly.
change your mindset on this one. Um, Rowan will probably never tune in again because we kind of shamed him a little bit. But
We
anyway,
gave some good follow-up tips.
yeah,
He's excited about his event and he's ready to post on social media. And they're like, no, 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 we must approve the social media content first. And I
yeah,
can understand that.
I love it. I can too. Let's go to Byron in Los Angeles. Byron writes in, one of our volunteers has been on social media posting pictures of the events they're helping at. Yay, team. We have a policy that no children should be photographed. Yeah. Are there any other nonprofits having the same problem? What else can we do? This is a
Wow.
big, big issue for volunteer services. Yeah, go forth and share with us your best
Oh
idea.
wow, this is a wonderful day of volunteerism and internal support and how to approach things in a very diplomatic way, but also meaningful in order to ensure the advancement of your organization. So first and foremost, obviously you want to demonstrate gratitude to your volunteers and their enthusiasm, because the last thing we want to do is curb enthusiasm for your organization. But in addition to that, because most organizations that have implemented volunteer programs, they have a training process. And with the training process, it includes the specifications of the things that we'd like you to do as a volunteer, and then also ways that we recognize our volunteers. And unfortunately, there are instances where we also have to have, in the event that we're not adhering to some of these things that are potentially not as great for our organization as we'd like them to be, that in the event that there are some violations of policy, here are some of the said recourses. And so with that, working in higher ed for almost 20 years, I've always had to deal with photos of someone at some point or another. So
Yeah.
to cover us, we always get the media release forms. However, specifically when it comes to children, if the policy of the organization is no children, that is the policy. So it is up to you as the administrator to adhere to that policy and administer the policy accordingly. What I would say is to have a revamp meeting with your volunteers prior to the event, or subsequent events, and go over the policies. And one of the things, I'm not a parent, but I can remember being a child, I would always ask when I was told no, is why? So explain to your volunteers, we have this policy in place, but the reason behind that is we want to protect the privacy of the children. We want to make sure that they are comfortable, and adults is fine, but not children. And that may mean that you have to take a little more time with your photos and editing and cropping. But if you cannot adhere and respect their privacy, then we'll ask you to refrain from doing so. And in the event that you do, then we'll have to ask you to remove that from your social media,
Right.
because
Well,
that is policy.
Oh, well, and the thing of it, it's a legal issue. I mean, we
It
have,
is definitely a legal issue for the
yeah,
organization.
and especially in California, where their laws are, if I'm not mistaken, because of the entertainment industry, are even more strict. I mean, and we have two factors. We have under the age of 18 and under, and then under the age 21 and under. So there are two different levels here, and you've got to be really on this because it's a big issue.
Absolutely. Because the legal implications aren't just for the organization, it can also be for the individual who posts. And so you want to really make sure that you spell that out very clearly, that there's not just one person that's potentially liable. It's all of us as a collective because you're acting as an agent via a volunteer.
Right. I think, LaShonda, one of the things that I think you can navigate around this is a very inexpensive way to do it, and that's a step and repeat. That
Love a step and repeat.
Yeah, and a step and repeat for those of you that might not know what it is. It's generally like a vinyl sign that's pretty
Stationary in the
pretty,
entry.
yeah, pretty secure. And
Mhm.
then it might have logos on it. It might have your branding, your
Absolutely.
messaging. I'm in front of a step and repeat in front of my studio, in my studio. And then you can say, okay, volunteers, time to take a picture. And then it might have some hashtags on it. It might have your website
Absolutely.
so that it helps brand up what's going on. And
Exactly.
that's super cool. The other thing is, I think you can maybe find a place within your campus or pre-think the volunteer activity. If we're, landscaping a playground, okay, this is where and when we can take images and kind of,
Exactly. And looking at those where and the locations, you
yeah,
know, you
yeah.
have to think this all
I
through as
think
though
you
it's a
do.
major production. And
Yeah,
I think you're spot on with the step and repeat because the step and repeat is a voluntary participation activity where I say, yes, you may take my picture because I'm literally standing there ready for you to take my photo. And so with that, you can definitely mitigate any potential legal issues. And then obviously, you let the individuals know that are involved in the photography that, we don't take photos of youth. And then we ask the youth to step aside. So then you have the quality photos that you want. You're able to capture the event and then you're able to adhere to the legal parameters.
exactly. And then one last thing before we let you go, Byron. Also, you need to make sure that your site is an address that is for public record. So, for example, if you're working with domestic violence, those sites are never, disclosed for security reasons. So that goes into tagging functions and mapping. So you need to be thoughtful about that, depending on what it is and what's the topic of service, because those again, most people would never think about it, but that could really endanger, a
Yes.
whole host of people. So, wow, LaShonda, I love, love, love your answers. I love your energy. Um, I think you, my friend, keep me on my toes because you always have a lot of great things to say and things that maybe I wouldn't have thought of. And so, super cool to have you on. LaShonda Williams is a trainer with Fundraising Academy. She comes to us from the great state of Texas, and we don't always get to have her on, but we really try and get her on at least once a month. And so thank you to our friends at Fundraising Academy for getting you on.
Thank you, Julia. It has been absolutely a wonderful opportunity to share with the broader community, and we're looking forward to the next opportunity. And we know that you're going to make the right decision.
I love it. I think you're right. Hey, everybody, check out Fundraising Academy. You can find them online at fundraising-academy.org. They have a lot of really amazing tools. Most of them are free. They cover all levels of engagement with fundraising, and it's an amazing team over there. So be sure to check them out. As we wind up this really busy and exciting week, we want to thank all of our partners who allow us to have these conversations. They range from Bloomerang to the American Nonprofit Academy, Fundraising Academy at National University, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Your Part-Time Controller, Nonprofit Nerd, and Staffing Boutique. They come to us each day with their trust and their support so we can have amazing people like LaShonda Williams on. So thank you so much. Okay, Lashonda, are you ready to have a good, restful weekend?
I am ready for a wonderful, restful weekend here in the Deep South, and I'm wishing everyone good health and happiness in this new year.
And I would say to stay warm because it's a hell of a storm coming across our country this weekend.
It definitely is, and I'm very thankful for the weather gear.
Woo! Yeah, if you missed us in the beginning, we were all talking about boots and coats because it's going to be a chilly one. Hey, to all of our friends that come to us each and every day, we want to end this episode with our sign off that we really truly believe, and that is to stay well so you can do well. We'll see you back here on Monday, everyone. Thank you, Lashonda.